I am joined this morning by our first speaker. His name is Steve Covello. He is a senior instructional designer at University of New Hampshire. If you've ever wished that students could get feedback before submitting their work, this session is for you. Steve will be demonstrating how to build an AI-powered tool that helps students evaluate their drafts for readiness. It's a practical look at supporting student success while saving instructor time. Steve, go ahead and get us started.
All right. Thank you very much, Callista. Thank you, everybody, for attending. My name is Steve Covello. I'm the Senior Instructional Designer here at University of New Hampshire College of Professional Studies online. We've been doing online since 1999, so this isn't anything new to us to try to solve problems in the fully asynchronous online environment here. We're serving mostly adult learners, but we're finding that there's a lot more typical age college students enrolling in fully online courses. So this is becoming more common because they seem to want that level of access. And this is a demonstration of how I created a pre-submission evaluator to improve the quality of student draft paper submissions for my online class. Now, before we begin, you should know that this can be done in the pro versions of ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, but you cannot share your app in Claude. You can build it, it'll work, you just can't share it. That's just not a feature that they designed into their system. Both ChatGPT and Gemini allow share links to place something like this in your course, but I kind of prefer the ChatGPT version, and I'll show you what they look like in a few minutes here. But just wanted to lay the groundwork here to say that of all of the frontier models here that are preferential for this, I think ChatGPT, the pro version, is the right platform to do something like this. Things change. If you prefer Gemini, okay, try it out on that. If it works, go with it. So the concept of building this app is essentially the same no matter which app, platform you choose to do, though the interface is just slightly different. I suggest that if you have access to pro accounts in both of them, that you try it out and make your own decision about what seems to work best for you. All right, so let's take a look at the problem here. So in my 8-week course, students submit a completed draft of their paper in Module 7 for feedback. Then they revise their work and resubmit it as final in Module 8. So the problem I encountered over the years has been that no matter how much communication and reminders I send out, students submit draft papers with the same problems: missing required topics, surface level inquiry, insufficient expository, no examples, and so on. So why not try out an AI pre-submission evaluator idea here, where they upload their paper into my bot and find out where their paper needs attention? So this session is to show you how that's done. Now, I will say that what I'm going to show you is a walkthrough, but the real value of this presentation, if you want to do something like this for yourself, is going to be in the handouts, because everything that I'm going to show you, I've provided as handouts for you to use as a trailblazing blueprint for you to emulate and come up with your own version of it here too. And it's not so much the concept that's a difficult thing to do here, it's the language, because the clarity of your intent and the context of how you want your bot to function is really the thing that makes it work, and work the way you want it to. All right, so let's just talk about the ingredients that goes into that thing that I just described. All right, so before I go through the demo, let's take a look here. The last I checked, you can only create a mini app like this in ChatGPT or Google Gemini with pro account, so paying the $20 a month for the pro account is an essential. In my opinion, like I said, ChatGPT is better than the other ones, but you can try that out for yourself. The other ingredient you're going to need is the assignment description. Now, that should come from your course, but as I'll show you later, you'll need to clean it up a little bit so that it can be machine readable and understood more clearly to a bot that doesn't have a certain amount of tacit knowledge about what you're trying to do in this system. You got to give it a little bit more background. All right, so feedback notes. If you happen to keep a repository of common feedback that you offer to students on their papers, you know, stuff you copy, paste, and put into their drafts, pull that out. And if there's anything else that you keep in your head, add to that so that you can have essentially a full range of different types of feedback that you intend to use most commonly in your draft papers. And if your assignment should follow specific formatting guides, prepare that too. And last, the bot will perform best when it has a one-shot example of an A paper. A few years ago, a student submitted one of the best papers in my class, Com 680, really in course history. He did a fantastic job. I was knocked out. This is before AI, so I know he didn't do it, through some other unethical method. So I asked him if it was okay if I used his paper as an example to show students in case they got stuck and they needed some kind of example to show what this type of assignment looks like. I've never had to use it, but I've had it in my back pocket. And lo and behold, this A paper is now serving as a one-shot example for this bot to use as a reference for what does a exemplary expression of this assignment actually look like. Now, I had to update it a few times because the course has changed, some topics have changed, and I've gone in and I've actually edited the paper myself. All right, so all of this culminates into something that we refer to as a knowledge document. This essentially becomes the resource from which your bot is going to draw its interpretation of what the student uploads into this bot for it to receive its evaluation. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. And that's the thing that takes time to do. If you do a really well constructed knowledge document, your bot's going to work a lot better. So now we need to plan what we want the bot to do and what we don't want it to do. And I'll just list the bullets here because it goes on and on and on into a lot of sort of minute details, which I'll show you. But here are the basics. So here's the first one. What we want it to do is, first of all, state that the bot is not a stand-in to the instructor. And that's the primary message that I want students to very much understand here, that I am not letting this machine stand in for me because I'm the reason why they're taking this class. I'm the professional who gives you valuable feedback. But it's not, they may have the impression that maybe this is going to grade their paper, but it isn't. All right. So that little chunk of text that I offer at the very first part of the response in the bot is critically important to frame what they are receiving. And you'll see that it all kind of makes sense when it comes together. So review the structure, expository narrative, and overall adherence to the assignment requirements. This is what we want it to do. List all the areas in need of attention with an explanation. Quote the section in the student's paper that requires that their attention, because if the bot just tells you, you need to do this or this, the student may not know what it's being referred to as. And then produce feedback in the form of a question. Now, this is sort of a later refinement that I added into this thing because a lot of times when I give student feedback, I say, what do you suppose the reader needs to know to be able to understand what you're saying here? It's that type of rhetorical question that helps the student think about where they need to go to help the reader better understand their work. Now, we have to be very explicit about what we do not want the bot to do. First of all, we do not want it to issue a grade, even if the student pursues a dialogue in ChatGPT and says, what do you think the grade would be for this? It's not going to give you a grade. That's not what it's for. And it will not allow you to rewrite the paper either. So you have to put in very explicit instructions that say what you don't want it to do. And the only way you're going to know is if you try to break it. All right. So this is what we're dealing with in the planning stages and conceptualizing what you want this bot to do. And now I'm going to show you what that all looks like inside the environment itself. Okay, so what you're looking at here is my ChatGPT Pro account. And you know that it's a pro account because you have this section here that says GPTs. Now, a GPT, if you're not initiated to it, is essentially a little tiny miniature application that you can create that allows a very simple one-shot type of function to occur based on a set of instructions. It's not really like a whole elaborate application with different types of features and functions here. It's designed to be relatively simple and self-contained. So you can see some of the other things here. I've got a Canvas code cleaner, right? That's another very sort of one-speed bike thing that takes a bunch of junk HTML code and from Canvas, cleans it up so I can copy it back into the course. I've got a Microsoft Word converter GPT here so that I can get quiz content in the right format. So once I'm inside this environment here, you can see that this is what the student actually sees. You've got a relatively simple conversation starter here, and then this is where the student would actually copy, paste, or upload their paper. But let's take a look at what's behind it. I'm going to go into the edit mode here, and I'm going to show you what you need to put into your bot. I'm going to click over to configure, and this is what we got. So we've got a name here, a description, and this doesn't serve any function in terms of AI functionality. It's just something that helps the user to understand what's going on. This is where all of that information about what you want this thing to do comes from here. Now, this is a real small space here, and I'll scroll down here, and you can see that there's a lot of instructions. I'm going to show you where all of that came from here in just a second. But first, let me just give you a rundown of the configuration here. Conversation starter, that's what this little piece right here is. You can have more than one, of course. And then this is the thing that I mentioned before that you're going to have to really spend some time on assembling in exactly the right content to make this thing work, because this becomes the knowledge through which the uploaded content is interpreted. I'm going to show you what that is. No, there's nothing else here that you need to be concerned about. You can leave all of these unchecked. We don't need this thing to be capable of searching the web or looking at code or anything else like this. All we want this bot to do is look at my knowledge, follow the instructions, and interpret what the student has uploaded through the lens of that information. And now, let's just take a quick glance over at the Gemini version of this. Gemini's version, again, this is a pro account, has what they call gems, and they do almost exactly the same thing. I'll just go into edit mode, and you can see that the content of how you build all this is almost exactly the same. There's a few more features in the ChatGPT version. I've tried this out. It's okay. It works, but there's one or two features that I won't get into that I don't think are perfect. And so for my money, the best way to go here is with ChatGPT. All right, so let's just take a little, let's go here to where we got those instructions from. Now, in my presentation, I explained to you what we want this to do and what we don't want this to do. But there's a lot more to that. What we have to do is set the instructions up here for ChatGPT to understand the context of what we're doing and the tonality of how we want that response to work here. And again, all of this is in the handouts. So if I happen to skim through all this stuff and you missed something that you want to look more closely, go check out the handouts. You can read it at your leisure here. So we are giving ChatGPT a persona. You are a professor in an undergraduate communications degree program. The tone of your communication should be formal and encouraging, but not too friendly. Now, it sounds weird to say not too friendly, right? We want to be friendly as instructors. But what I found is that if you don't put that in there, then it will be way, way too like sycophant friendly, and you don't want it to have that type of communication vibe between the bot and the student here. And this seems to work. The response tonality works out perfectly fine. Here's your role. Your role is to help students prepare their term paper for final submission. It is strictly to indicate where their paper needs attention. You cannot offer, again, you cannot revise their work. They must write their own work. If they ask for suggested revisions, politely decline. So this is a verbalized reflection of what you do not want this thing to do. Here's a very specific conversation starter, and this is important because you want the bot to always say the same thing, because in my testing, I found out that the response to the conversation starter varies greatly, and you want it to be controlled very specifically to say, always say, yes, upload your anonymized document or just copy paste the text. Boy, did that solve a lot of problems. If the user doesn't upload it or enter anything in the chat box, this is what you do. And that came out of testing as well when I accidentally clicked run with nothing uploaded, and it went ahead and evaluated a ghost paper. I said, no, you can't do that. All right, so you'll identify specific areas of students' paper that need review according to all of these criteria. So in the common overall feedback, which I'll show you in just a minute, it has all the types of things that I want this bot to look for and offer feedback from. And now we're going to tell the bot how we want that feedback to be issued. Your responses should be like this: identify the area, explain what needs attention, show the section, explain why it needs attention, offer a question that inspires the user thinking about how they could improve the area. Here is an example. Now, I had to add this into the instructions because I was finding that the system was improvising and wasn't exactly following my examples. So I had to give it something very specifically from my sample paper so that it would do exactly the performance I wanted. Keep your feedback focused on what the paper needs, not what the user needs to do. Do not speak to the user as you need to explain how or your paper needs. That's a tonality specification. Again, this came out all during testing. Do not offer suggestions how to improve the writing style, but if you feel they have grammatical errors, recommend that they get that reviewed. Never shall refer to or compare prior uploaded content or papers. And I don't even know if this is necessary, but I wanted to put in a failsafe that made it so that the bot did not actually show another student's paper or work or refer to anything else. Never offer assistance for anything else other than what is prescribed, and always start your paper with the following statement: before I begin, I am not a stand-in, so on and so forth. So all of this that I have showed you goes into this instructions area that I showed you before. And that's where that goes to tell the bot what to do. Now, let's quickly go through the knowledge document. This is the assignment taken from the course. Here's the required elements of the paper. Again, you've got all this, required topics to cover. Come on. Here's the overall common feedback from a general perspective. Use transitions, use the positions you developed into discussions, use citation, common instructor feedback for specific topics in the course. And these are all topics that we discussed in the course itself in the online discussions. Here's the structural guidelines. Here's what the body ought to be. Conclusion. And here's the A paper. All of this is the knowledge document, and this is all the bot needs to do the work that needs to be done. So we've given it instructions. We've given the knowledge that it is required to do it. And now this bot is ready to run. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is show you what this looks like in the actual course. So here's module 7. And here we've got external links that go to the pre-submission evaluator. Now there's 2 options in the course. I'm just dealing with option 1 here. But the main thing that's worth your attention is that I've given the students some information about what we're actually doing in this draft evaluator. And I'm saying that's experimental because this is ongoing. So you're not required to use it. It's an AI tool based specifically for this course. You do not need a paid subscription. You can just use this tool for free. It does not grade your paper. And you will get an evaluation that is at best an estimate. So don't take it too seriously, but you can figure that whatever is in that evaluation is likely to be what I'm going to say if you didn't use it. And I always tell them to upload their draft paper without their name. I'm not sure if that would make any difference, but let's be safe. Okay. Now, let's just take a look at what this looks like when it actually works. So what I've done is to show you an example of a test that I used with a paper, and check my draft paper to see how well it meets the assignment specifications. Are you ready? That was the conversation starter. Yes, upload your anonymized document or just copy paste it here. That was in the instructions. And now I pasted the text. Here's the response before I offer my feedback. That's the preamble that I want in front of every evaluation. And this is what it gives it. So structural alignment with assignment requirements, area that needs attention. It doesn't really follow the format, what it needs. Here's the relevant section, why this needs attention, where might the paper more clearly separate the lived experience of target population. And now it goes into specific areas of the course where this paper has areas that need attention. So what you're looking at here, and I'll just go all the way to the end so you can see what this looks like here in totality. So what we're getting here from the student's perspective is an opportunity to revisit what they have written in the paper according to the specifications of the assignment and the most likely types of feedback that I'm going to give them that do not involve the knowledge of the subject matter and its interpretation. This has everything to do with making sure that you have given the reader what the reader needs to understand what you're trying to say, and that it is in a format that represents the type of narrative that we're looking for in this assignment. Now, if you build this type of bot and you're going to test it out, it's really important that you test it on a variety of papers of different quality. You can't just feed it an A paper, and then not do like a C paper and assume that it will work. It's really important to do that not optimal paper just so that you can see the extent to which that this bot will improvise if it gets to that point where it's not sure what to do with the problems in that paper. All right, so the last thing I'll just mention is that, here we go. In the handouts is a somewhat formal academic paper that explains everything that I've just described to you, and then all the separate documents. And it includes a little bit of data capture that I have done for the courses where I've used it. And you can see what the students' responses have been when I ask them in a brief survey what their experiences was like in using this system. And so far, everybody has said, not a heck of a lot of people, still working on it, everybody has responded positively to this. And there's even a couple of open responses here that thought it was a pretty cool thing. All right, my friends, that's the whole thing. And let me kill the screen share here, if I can do that. Yes, I can. And say thank you for listening. And the floor is open for questions. And Callista, if you'd like to lead any other questions here from your perspective, please go right ahead.
Yeah, this is really amazing. We have one question so far, so I'll throw that up there for you. It says from Efren, amazing work. What excites you most about where AI is headed?
Sure. Well, since I'm the senior instructional designer here, I have to look at it somewhat from two different perspectives, not just from a faculty perspective like I showed you here. What I'm really looking forward to is making something using AI that transforms the work of instructional design. And what I mean by that specifically is that the tier one type of work that we tend to do is mostly like, course preparation, course design and development with our SME and director partners, and just making sure that everything is ready and working and cycles through each term without any problems here. But that second tier instructional design work is much more about course intelligence and finding out what's happening in the courses, not just what is in it, but how is it actually working, and seeing how those connections between programmatic outcomes, course learning outcomes, and assessment criteria all align and have strengths and weaknesses. And my current project using Claude Code is to create a course intelligence system where you can ask the bot any question you want about your entire program, and it will tell you. Much in the same way that you could use like a front-end plain text chatbot to ask the questions about anything else in life. That's what really gets me excited.
That's awesome. What do you see as being next on the horizon for you to play with and invent?
Well, at this point right now, I'm trying to figure out a way to make it so that our program directors, or deans, whatever you would call them, have a plain text interface that allows them to find out what the heck is going on in their programs. Because they all know that everything is mapped, but maybe they have some questions about something like, where in my program is artificial intelligence used hands-on by students? Which courses, which assignments, and how are they being assessed? You can't get that answer in Canvas, right? You can't get that answer by any other means unless you have all of your content available in a RAG model with a front-end interface that lets you query it. And that's what I'm working on right now. And that opens up a lot of possibilities.
That's awesome. We got another question in the chat. I'll bring it up. Jessica says, how would a course intelligence system differ from a chatbot with program documentation in a knowledge bank?
Well, it's actually one and the same thing. Program documentation, if you were to interpret that, would be every course, every assignment, every rubric, every course learning outcome, every programmatic outcome, every assessment criteria. If you have all of that and call that program documentation in a knowledge bank, then essentially what you can do is have a conversation with your portfolio. So try to imagine, if you've used Notebook LM before, right? Try to imagine your entire Canvas portfolio of content in Notebook LM, a RAG model, that allows you to have that conversation. And I've got a little side personal project that has several centuries of genealogical information for my family.
Wow.
In documents where I can have a conversation with that data. So that becomes an exciting frontier when you know that all you have to do is ask a question.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I hadn't thought of using it for something like that, but how interesting. How far back does your genealogy go?
Well, so far I've been able to go to the mid 1600s. So
wow.
it gets fuzzy
pretty
after
amazing.
that.
Well, we've got time for a few more questions. If anyone in the chat wants to add more, go ahead. If not, I'll ask some.
If there aren't any other questions, I'll just offer just a couple of pieces of advice. If something comes up, by all means, just stop me here. The most important thing that I would advise if you are getting into this for the first time is to be resilient, which means that you're going to have to continuously iterate and iterate and iterate and shape the way that you want this system to respond, because that's just the nature of this type of work. And it's not difficult to do. You just got to stick with it and get it until it does exactly what you want it to do. Be humble about it, because you'll find errors and malfunctions that you never anticipated. Let your students give you some feedback if they have that opportunity, and certainly share it with colleagues to get their feedback as well. Don't try to go alone yourself. Don't try to do this yourself all alone. And make sure that you forgive yourself for not making something perfect the first time. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, Jessica agrees with you. She says resilience is key in the age of AI.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She actually has one more question. I'll
Sure.
that up.
Is the AI context window larger in intelligence system than you can make with Claude Code and other knowledge banks? Sometimes. Well, the thing that people keep complaining about with Claude Code is that they reach their token limit like within an hour or a couple of hours or something. And what I'm finding is that one of the key techniques of working in the Claude Cowork and Claude Code environment for building an app or something more complicated is to prepare your input content with the most optimized tokens as possible. Use plain text. Don't use PDFs. Don't use Word documents if you can avoid it. And then the other thing is to understand that if you go through a thread through, for an hour or something, it's going to lose the context of what you initially tried to work with. And so you can say at a certain point in your session, let's summarize what we're doing here, update the Claude.md document, and tell me what I should do in my next session to start from scratch so we can pick up where we left off. All right. I mean, that's too many words for you to remember. But the main thing to understand is that you have to use your intuition to know when you're starting to run out of that context window, and you should start over in a new thread and tell the system to pick up where you left off.
That's great. Yeah, Jessica says that's great advice. Thank you.
It is. I've run into the token wall too many times, and I go, all right, I got to make this work better.
Yeah, I know my husband's been playing with Claude a lot, and he ended up convincing me to let him pay more for it so he could have
Right.
more access to it, because, yeah, he
Okay.
kept hitting that wall.
How are we doing on time? We have just one little thing. I will just say that you will see my contact information someplace somewhere in this conference system. I invite you to contact me, and if you want me to give you some feedback or some advice on something, by all means, because I'm learning just like you are, and I swear I'm figuring new things out every time I use these systems. Don't be shy.
Yes, thanks for sharing that. I love being connected with Steve on LinkedIn. I love watching all the things you post. It's always so insightful.
Oh, I'm on Substack too. Just put my
Substack
name in
too?
Substack. You'll find it.
Oh, okay, that's great.